Welcome to the Lost Vet podcast, where we are helping you to get back to your passion and purpose. I'm your host, Dr. Melodie Chan, and in today's episode, I have Dr. Alycia Chrenek with me to help walk through a scenario that was presented to me by a friend of mine who is in a veterinary clinic. I'm going to call this one the surprise change. Have a listen. Hello, how are you doing today, Alycia?
I'm doing great.
Oh, that's good. It's getting into that winter season almost, so always
Yes,
looking
it's nice
forward
to have
to.
my scarf on and feel a little bit warm. I don't quite
Woohoo!
have my pumpkin spice latte, but
We'll
I
get
have an
there.
iced tea.
That's awesome. I wanted to set up a scenario and pick your brain. I had a friend come to me with this situation that happened to her in clinic, and I thought it would be a good one for us to brainstorm on. So this person is in a veterinary clinic, has been in the veterinary clinic, this particular one, for 20 years, and has always done the scheduling for the veterinarians that are on the floor, for basically the whole year. And she was called into the manager's office here a couple weeks ago and was just told that she no longer needed to worry about doing the scheduling. It was being given to somebody else. And from what I could gather, that was kind of the gist of the conversation. I think she was taken by surprise. She had asked, did I do something to lose this? What's happening? She didn't feel like she got any clarity. And her question to me was, is this normal?
I This scenario, I think, is all too true. Unfortunately, it happens probably too much. And the reverse is like, when did we forget good manners, right? Of just basic conversation. And so then her follow-up question of, is this normal? No,
Mm-hmm.
it's not normal. And if it is normal, because what does normal even mean? Um, then that's just a symptom of other communication problems that are there. And a couple of places that we can take that conversation. First of all, is as the manager, sometimes I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Um, in vet school, my roommate and I, we would joke, like, if somebody cuts you off on the way to school, we'd be like, it's okay, they just have to pee, right? So my default is that, maybe there's something else going on, and that truly their intent wasn't to blindside her or to not communicate that. And so maybe they were just busy and not thinking, because
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm guilty of that as a manager, and it's certainly not my intent. Um, as the person, I think it's very hurtful, and that is okay to be hurt by that situation. And if I were to come back, and obviously it's still bothering her because now she's having a conversation again in another spot,
Mm-hmm.
is I think it's perfectly reasonable to circle back at another time or in the moment and say, like, what, this is still bugging me, right? Open that communication line. And it brings me, so in Rob's book, it's on page 69, the transactional analysis. And this is probably one of the biggest, like, eye-opening aha moments for me, is having him go through that transactional analysis,
Yeah.
um, where you're talking, are you the parent, so are you parent to parent, parent to child, or are you talking adult to adult? And in these situations, as an employee or as a manager, we take this parent to child as how we're supposed to do it, but
Mm.
we're not. We're all adults. It's actually supposed to be adult to adult. And so, as the person that's receiving that change, as an adult, I would ask of, like, hey, this doesn't sit well. Like, her question of, have I done something wrong? Well, no, you haven't done anything wrong. Well, then help me understand the change. Or I really enjoyed this part of the job, or maybe I didn't. Like, I'm okay with
Yep.
not having it. But the process of flow that this was communicated to me doesn't sit well. And then you're asking them to come to an adult situation, and you are commanding your space and your respect in that zone. And that's where now the person dictating that to her or saying that has the opportunity to either double down and go into the parent child, because some
Yep.
will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of these interactions give you more information. So, not necessarily bad. You can walk out from that meeting. If they double down, they're like, well, I'm the boss. I said this is how it's going to happen. This was my decision. Move on. Sometimes I guess maybe that's okay, but mostly it's going to tell you more about who you're dealing with and where you're at. And maybe if that's the way that's going to continue, um, maybe it's not the right culture for you to be in, right? If you're okay with it and everything else is good, keep moving on. But hopefully they say, "Oh, you are right. That's not what my intent was. I can't explain all of the decisions that came to this because sometimes there are things that we don't know about as employees that aren't for us to know about, but they can be honest with saying the decision is separate from the job that you were doing. In the future, I will do my best to communicate that better." Or, some sort of reassurance, an adult to an adult. But they might double down, and be prepared for both of those scenarios. Um, as the managers listening to this, or somebody, because we're all in some aspect of a manager role in a clinic, no matter where we sit, because we are leading from within. When you're making changes, whether it be as seemingly small as a schedule or as big as a head count, slow
Mm-hmm.
down for a second and think about who is this going to affect, who is going to be on the receiving end, what might it change, what don't I know. Maybe there's somebody on the team that you can sample the conversation with, or ask some more information, because we all have blind spots. There's spots that I don't know necessarily how this decision is going to affect person B on the team. But maybe I can ask a few more questions and just slow down and think about what's happening. And as we've discussed multiple times before, we are human. We do make decisions. We go ahead and aren't aware. We blind spots are always there. The repair is everything. So once you see that you've maybe not approached something as ideally as possible, it's okay. Like, it is perfectly okay to admit that. We're adults. And if you don't have the psychological safety in your team to admit that as a manager or as a team member, well, then you've got some more work to do, because there is a disconnect. And setting that culture of psychological safety, we are both adults in that analysis. So
I think
that's my little
that,
soapbox.
yeah, but I think it's the essence of what you're saying is be human first.
Yeah, yeah. Have
And
have manners.
and
Say please and thank you.
yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I think it's sometimes, as whether, I'll just say in quotation marks, management that made this decision to change who was going to do the scheduling. Again, it sounded to me like it was made in isolation without, as you mentioned, like just sampling it, or even, what it, and if this is a decision that needed to be made higher up and needs to be rolled out. I think one of the pieces in my career that I learned from a really great manager in helping with change management. This individual said to me, my goal is that no information that I provide should ever come as a surprise, unless
100%.
it's a really positive, like the
Yeah,
only exception is if it's exciting good news. But
yeah.
this individual had said, you know, my goal is that nothing should really ever come as a surprise to anyone. And I really took that to heart, because then it becomes this, again, process and pathway of intention of how do you then breadcrumb the change that will be coming in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Well, and I love that because I've thought of that exact same phrase because you've shared with me in the past that this shouldn't come as a surprise. So even in this scenario, it could be as simple as we're looking at our efficiencies and like as you're because you don't just change the schedule in 1 hour. So
Mm-hmm.
we're looking at our efficiencies. There's going to be some changes coming up so that we can, optimize our flow or whatever that descriptor word is.
Yeah.
But even that is enough to be like, oh, okay, we're sorting it out. And if this individual came to me as a manager in that time, I'd be like, oh, are we looking at the schedule? How can I help? Then that even opens the discussion of, well, I would sample it with them. So how is it working for you doing the schedule? What are the challenges? And then say, okay, thanks for the information. I'll get back to you shortly. I don't have to
Yeah.
answer them there, but at least hear what they're doing.
Yeah.
And have them feel like they're part of the conversation. It might be the right thing for the clinic to not have that person schedule, to free her up so that she can do more emergency work, or perhaps something wasn't, it could be maybe the scheduling wasn't working, but you're still finding a way to make it more efficient. And that's that little bit of prep. It doesn't have to be big. You don't have to reveal your deepest secrets. But signaling that something is coming is a very important part of it. And then that adult to adult conversation, it sounds so simple, but we're humans.
Yeah.
Open the communication flow and talk back and forth about it.
Yeah. Because I think what confounded the situation even more is the scheduling was then given to somebody else, another veterinarian on the team. So she literally has been left with no answers of understanding why,
Which is such poor form, right? Like it's just bad manners and poor peopling.
Yeah.
It's not really a word, but it's
peopling and humaning.
Yeah, it's just and even if it was like, I'm trying to think of other reasons why they would do that. Maybe they wanted that other person to develop scheduling skills or to understand how hard it is to set a schedule. That's still an answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of
Mm-hmm.
this is a development opportunity for Dr. So and so, or like I said, maybe we want to free her up. Her time is better spent because of her skills somewhere else. Turn it into a positive.
Yeah.
But with no answer at all, that's just, we as humans, we will naturally fill in the blank if it is left open. And unfortunately, it's not filled in as, oh, I was doing such a great job, it was time for somebody else to do it. It's
Yes.
usually filled in with some sort of negative, something that pulls us down, and our internal voice is saying, you were doing a bad job, nobody liked what you were doing, blah, blah, blah. And one of the biggest things we can do for our teams in that moment is to fill that gap so that they don't fill it in with something negative. And I guess on the flip side, if something was going wrong, this is the opportunity for me to
Mm-hmm.
have that coaching moment to say, you know what, this was how you were scheduling wasn't perceived as fair, or whatever that was, that coachable moment. That's the time. Take advantage of it. Don't lose that opportunity to help that person understand how they were affecting the team with their scheduling or something.
Yeah.
We do better.
Do better as humans and people. I think we may have to start a segment of bad manners or bad management. We can.
Yeah, exactly.
Could do that.
Yeah.
Oh. But I mean, I think again, it's a challenging spot, especially, and I fully understand. I've been there when you have to make big, management decisions. This is not even like a big thing in my mind, but
Yeah.
obviously it is a big thing, right? For that
Yeah.
person, that this has been their responsibility for 20 years, and as management, you may think, but it's just a schedule, and
Yeah,
I
it
think
means nothing, but
yeah, I think you're spot on when you're saying, like, take that moment just to step back and think about how this impacts the person.
Hmm.
While it may seem seemingly like just a task that, oh, they will be grateful that we've taken this off their plate,
Yeah.
maybe not recognizing the other repercussions that can
Yeah.
happen. So,
And filling in that gap with what your intent is. So
yeah,
use that, understand that they will fill that gap in information with something probably negative. Um, if I want it to be a constructive criticism, coachable moment, use it because it's a good moment to do that. If not, fill it in with the positives so that they walk away thinking, okay, this is good. This is good, right? I have another 2 hours of my life every week or whatever that looks like.
great. Thank you so much for the
Yeah,
chat.
you're welcome. Thank you.
There are a few things that stood out to me with my conversation with Dr. Chrenek as we worked through the scenario. One was, remember to be human first. And if you're going to be implementing a change, take a moment to step back and think about the people it will impact and the person it will impact, specifically when you're going through a change in the clinic. And something that might seem really small to you, maybe really big for the individual that is on the receiving end. So remember just good manners. Like Alycia said, please and thank you, and just think about how you want to treat other people. I think the other piece I thought was really insightful was the repair is everything. So again, we're just human. We may roll things out the wrong way. We may say things that we inadvertently didn't mean to impact another person, or it was received in a way we didn't anticipate. That's okay, as long as you're willing to, as the person who is the manager or the person who is implementing the change, go back and have a conversation with the person. As a person who may be on the receiving end of something that just doesn't feel right, you absolutely have the okay to feel the way you feel. I think it's important that you take that and do something with it constructively, in the sense that if something's really bothering you about something that's happened in the clinic, take the time to approach it with the person or people that the situation is about, and just voice how you're feeling. And again, it's not a blame game. It's just saying, hey, I'm still trying to understand what happened here. It's not sitting well with me. I'd like to just really understand how this decision came to be. And again, to pull on a piece of advice that was provided to me that has really guided me through the rest of my journey in managing teams and other people, is remembering that nothing should ever come as a surprise to somebody. That if you've done things in the right way, so to speak, that you're able to lead somebody to a change situation where they have been properly prepared or primed along the way. So hopefully those are some guiding principles to help you along. If you're in a position where you're needing to implement a change, whether you perceive it as being small or maybe it's a bigger change, and as somebody who's on the receiving end of things, taking a moment to maybe just reflect on intention. And if you're not really clear of what's happened, approaching it with that sense of curiosity and asking, help me understand. Until next time, thanks for listening.